Meeting's called to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, I'll remind folks when you are recognized by the chair and you do speak, please talk into your mic as much as you can. I know some of you are sharing, so just point it towards you as well. Also, when we take our votes, we're still gonna hold our hands up high for a little bit longer so that the camera folks can get us on record. All right, we're considering two new members tonight. So we've got Counselor from District 2, Counselor Robach, and then Counselor from District 5, Counselor Milks. Three? Oh, are you Ward 3? Ward 3, but District 5 for the county. Yeah, so if anyone would like to make a motion to accept them as members of this body.
So moved.
I have that from Mr. Titus and a second from Mr. Pelletier. Any discussion? All those in favor? Keep them up. All those opposed? And those abstaining? I assume those are abstentions from the two we're voting on because you're not members yet. So how many of us are here tonight? 12. So 10-0-0 for that one. Welcome. Oh, thank you. Sorry, y'all. Law school's kicking my butt. Great, so we'll move on to roll call then. And I am here. Steve Morgan.
Yep.
Caleb Robach.
Here.
Ed Hill is excused. Selectman Rennie is excused. Mr. Stefanik.
Here.
Counselor Ward.
Here.
Counselor Lunt.
Here.
Counselor Milks.
Yes.
Apologies, I'm just gonna make a note. Mr. Pelletier.
Here.
Mr. Kroll.
Here.
Mr. Titus.
Here.
Selectman Nichols.
Here.
Selectman Cesare. Yeah. Got it. Great. So there's 12 of us tonight. A reminder that votes of 11 or more are considered binding for the commission. Oh, sorry. All right, and now we're gonna pass it over to Larry just to briefly lead us through one of the memos he gave us tonight, catch us up on that. I will say, most people are wearing masks, but transmission is high in Androscoggin County today. Do with that what you will.
Okay, I was asked some questions last meeting to bring to this meeting, and I'll just briefly go down some of them, and you can spend some time with. There is one that I want to spend a little more time. The amount of the 3% wage increase, as I say here, I took out the union wages. They're at 3% in union contract. Taking out the steps, grade changes, off-scale increases, the 3% increase plus benefits is $64,144. That's 1% is 21 and 2% is 42.
Okay, can I just check? Mr. Ward, does that answer the question you had?
That was my question, yes.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yes, thank you.
That answers the question. Great, awesome. Let's keep going.
And then the premium pay, I'm concerned about that wages should be cut because it goes back to the old days that I talked about when the county gave on one hand and took on the other. And one of the things we severely looked at, or surely looked at, was that instead of working under trying circumstances, if some of our employees had been unemployed, that had been making unemployment plus $600 a week, and they were working their hearts out in again, trying circumstances, you can imagine some of the trying circumstances in the jail and that kind of thing as well. So I'll let you read the rest of that, but we felt that the employees needed to be felt, appreciated, and valued. And the 3% 2022 increase is less than the rate of inflation, and it also equates to the general government employees to the union employees, which are under contract. It was stated that the percentage of wages and benefits in municipal budgets is 40 to 60%, and I'm making the statement that county government can't be equated to municipalities because we don't maintain roads, we don't have to buy $1 million fire trucks, we don't have to buy plowing equipment. There's a lot of things that municipalities have to do that counties don't, because most of our services are personal services and require more staff and less infrastructure and equipment. So the county percent of wages and benefits, I said not including jail, but actually I did the same with the jail, and it comes out 72%. If, however, you take out health insurance, it comes down to about 53. So,
Mr. Curl, was that your question?
No, that was mine.
That was yours.
Yep.
Actually, I would flip what you had to say, Larry. In fact, it's the point that I've actually made, learning it from both in Lewiston and Lisbon, is the fact that an average municipality budget can be as much as 60%. So we can, unless you want to cut services, you're only focused on 40% of anything that's actually
Right.
in our purview. To see that that's actually higher at the county, it just further augments that. And the fact that when 3% raise increase that's built into this is only 64,000, and the rest is actually static associated with that, we're gonna spend a lot of energy talking about topics that are only 28% of this budget. That's the
Right.
only thing that I was trying to remember.
That's helpful to have. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
one of the things that you are concerned about, as we were concerned about, is when you look at the percentage of tax increase, even though for those that are new, our expenditures are 3%, but our revenues are down significantly. We used way more revenues the last, actually, couple of years than we should have, and so we don't have those to use. However, as I stated before, the tax rate in 2020 was 0.00125. In 2021, it went down to 0.00120. So therefore, it went from $1.25 per thousand to $1.20 per thousand. Thus, if you had a house valued at $100,000, it had a drop in county tax this year of $5. Without knowing the upcoming state valuation, my estimate is that the 2022 budget, as presented, will show an increase of $5 or less from the 2020 tax on that $100,000 house. Indeed, if the state valuation increases at the same percent as the 2021 rate, which is 4.6%, the rate will not reach 0.00129, even with overlay, and this equates to 4 cents per thousand increase from 2020, or 9 cents per thousand increase from 2021. So if you go back to 2020, nobody remembers when the rates dropped, and they dropped this year on that $100,000 house by $5. If indeed my projection of the 2022 state valuation, which we won't have until first part of October, is the same percent, then that house will go up by $4 from 2020, or by $9 from 2021. So I just wanted to make that, because a percentage on a small amount is way less than, a percentage on a small amount amounts to less dollars than on a larger, and we're a small part of your budgets. The jail reserve balance, I'll let you do that. We started out with 773. Looks like we're ending up with 376. I would ask not to touch that, simply because the way that the jail is a very, if you don't have some money set aside, you can be in a real hurry. And like I said, last year, the jail, the funding, they changed the way they do it, and so $366,000 that I normally got at the beginning of the year, I didn't get it all, because you had to wait till the end of the year and beg for it, and there wasn't any money to beg for, but we came out okay, because we did have that cushion.
On that one, so I assume this minus 150K is for the body scanner, which now lives in the ARP funds. Are you still holding that aside because ARP funds have not been allocated, or I assume that's what that line is?
No, the 150 is in the 376.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And then deferred disposition, I think Mr. Wood asked about the amount as of 9/21/21 is $24,000. And so you need to look at that because you voted to increase the revenue from 40 to 50,000 next year. We don't know how that's going to play itself out. The ARPA revenue loss expenditures, we've attached 2 pages, one from the interim final rule, and then there was a reference from NACO. The recovery funds can be used for the provision of government services within that definition, but they can't be used simply to reduce the tax amount. And there are significant number of building projects that may not qualify under regular rules, but can qualify with this fund. We're leaving tax impacts in future years. So anyway, that's my pitch for all of those things.
Does anyone have questions on this? Mr. Titus?
Thank you very much. Just a couple of comments real quick. As far as the valuation, one thing that we need to put in there, you were talking about $5 increase or $4 decrease or whatever. We found that various communities go up in value and end up paying more of their share of the county and end up paying more on their tax bill of county, and others pay less depending, that's a moving target. But to say that everybody's going to have had a reduction last year of $5 in their taxes is not true. I mean, some communities went up in value, and therefore they had an increase in what they actually paid for county tax.
But if your house valuation stays the same, then the total amount that the town pays.
Right, but that's not a real, obviously. I've seen some towns go up 20 and 30% in value.
Right, because the valuation goes up. And that valuation increase from the state varies from new construction to, sales and so on. So there's a whole host of things
But
there.
some communities see that their tax bill goes up because their valuation goes up, so their percentage of the total county bill changes. As it regards to the premium pay, and you wanted to say it's like giving away and taking back and giving, and it's unfair. My point when I was talking about this last time was it's unfair that just because you had $600,000 to give, that other businesses in the community and other places couldn't. You did it. And an employee is valuable here, but it's also valuable in so many other places.
Sure.
And this funding is supposed to help the community at large. And I just think that it was a mistake to just go ahead and automatically do that at that rate when so many other people are working very hard for a lot less money with no bonuses. So I didn't think that was fair in that regard. And then the last place, it looks like we can use funding for losses. So lost revenue shortfall, you had $431,000. Do you think that that could be made up or given back using these funds? When you're talking about the lost revenues here in the jail, 431,000. Revenue shortfall, you called it.
Oh.
You had the jail reserve, and then you had the budget, the balance, of course, so we talked about.
Right, that was the revenue shortfall, but then we also used a good part of that in the budget.
But that's a shortfall nonetheless. It's $400,000 shortfall in revenue. Does that mean? we can
Shortfall in
use-
revenue, and then you had the amount that you budgeted, that you used in your regular budget.
Yeah, but.
You
how
had
that-
your expenditure budget, and then your revenue budget. The 400,000 was in that expenditure budget, and we ended up not having revenue of 431,000.
Right, okay. So that's not eligible for this.
No.
So there was a certain amount there was, though, right? Did you mention last week that there was a
Talked about 800,000.
$800,000 in revenue losses from last year or during the current?
Right.
So that's going to be, from your determination, that's going to be able to, this money can be used for that, to replace that money?
No.
It can't.
No. No, it's made very clear that you can't use money to replace, and that,
Can be
again,
used for the,
you have to use it for maintenance or pay-go funding, building of infrastructure.
Let's jump to Mr. Kroll real quick, because I think he has a related
Sure,
statement
that would be
and/or
cool.
question.
Yeah, so I had asked this for clarification, Larry, I appreciate it. So Larry's right, you can't just take that money and put it towards your to reduce your tax commitment.
Correct.
What you can do, though, is you can use that towards operational costs within the upcoming budget year. So if there's $800,000, you could allocate $300,000 towards items that are in this expense account with no restrictions as compared to the ARPA restrictions under the regulations. So it can be applied to operational costs. You just have, it's just the way that you
The way
define
you
it.
do it, so in the end, it would be next year, we'd reap the benefits and a fund balance increase.
Next year, you would then have to also make up that amount that you put in there for the
Right.
upcoming year. So it does create a cliff. The question is, but you have 800,000 as Larry's referring to. So you could break that out over to 2024, but eventually, either you reduce the operating expenses in year 2025, or you slowly bring that back in over the next few years by using the ARPA revenue funds.
Okay, so,
Or you
the-
build back your revenues to what they were.
Or you build back your revenue so that
I
offsets.
don't know how we do that.
Right.
But
And my comment that I made earlier that I will insist that you get is that there are so many other things we need to do that money can be used for, even in this building. 2010, 2008, I forget which year, they did a study of the expenditures it would cost to bring this building up to what was then, and they had a few pipe dreams, but anyway, the expenditures of bringing this building up to snuff was $35 million. Obviously, we've never had that to spend, and we've been kicking away at it, but a couple of the things that Dave has had in his budget and has got in his budget for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years is $20,000 for flooring and $50,000 a year for roofing. That will qualify under this, and so therefore, you know, if we take that and use it for this, then you're not going to see that increase each, you know, that amount each year in the regular budget. So there are a lot of things that we can do to offset future years' budgets using this, but if we use it all at once and then don't have anything more, then we're in a world of hurt.
And can I just ask, so what's been approved already by the county commissioners to expend from the ARP funds is about 1.3, 1.4 million of the total allocation to the county?
Yeah, that's not the revenue loss share that we're talking about. But
Right.
there's about one, and plus is another that hasn't shown yet because we're still working on numbers, but EMA has some significant needs that are going to be coming. That's going to be, you know, quite a lot of dollars as well.
Mr. Ward?
I'm going to go back to our conversation that we were having when we started this, to highlight again that we are looking at a 12.3% tax levy increase over the previous year, specifically highlighted because revenues are 25% drop. To Mr. Crowell's point, it would go a long ways to be able to say consideration for this funding, if it is specifically related to lost revenues, would actually cushion that significantly to reduce that on the local community. That's the counter here.
Mr. Lott?
And I do want to point out that one of the things you can spend it on is the provision of police, fire, and other public safety services. So that would include the sheriff and presumably the jail too. So I don't see a reason that you couldn't offset those expenses.
Okay. Going back to my question, Larry, I don't feel like I got a clear answer. So on the ARP expenditures that you gave us, second page in here, ARP plan expenditures approved, I've got a total of $1.337 million. And then recommended, we've got these other numbers. So those dollars have not been committed by the county commission at the point you gave us this binder. I don't know if they've been committed now for the HVAC, for the IT
The
facilities.
HVAC has not been, they have not approved that yet. Actually, at their next meeting, there's going to be a presentation for that from the engineer, but that hasn't been approved yet.
Okay.
It's in the works, but not approved.
I think what we're hearing from folks is that we would really like to know if there's any possibility of using those uncommitted funds, a portion of them, not, I don't think $800,000 is reasonable, but in this operational expense to cushion us, to use Mr. Ward's language, going forward, because I think that, I mean, I mentioned 12% at the Lewiston City Council meeting last night, and two people almost fell off their chairs, so I think other communities
One of
would
those
run
people
into that.
specifically, our finance director,
Well, city administrator.
and city administrator now. The fact is, you can talk a lot of things that you're not gonna win a conversation, math with Heather, you will lose all day, every day. That is a hard burden for local communities at that level. And one of the points there, I didn't mean.
No, you're good, go for it.
The revenue side of things. We'll get into revenues at a later date, but the absence of RSU revenues in Poland contracts is.
Moving those to the grant lines.
Moving those to the grant lines that are completely not out of this purview is actually augmenting that problem considerably. I'm still trying to put my head around how you can bless a budget without a
But-
$20 million windfall that's actually playing out in this process.
Again, it's an in and out. You add the money back into the revenues, you have to add it back into the expenditures. So those two things, that's always a wash, no matter what year, it's always a wash, and so that was taken out and put aside as contracts.
I don't want to interrupt, Larry, but give Poland contract,
Mhm.
$268,000. Show me the
Right.
line item that's reduced on the expenditure side. Show me the line item. Because in that regard, I can clearly see that there is a 25% increase in loss of revenues, but I am not seeing the equivalent of the expenditure side to say to your point that it's a wash.
Well,
Yeah, you're going to have some increase in expenditure from, if you can't just take that out and then have increases in normal operations, staff and so on and so forth, you're going to have some increase, but it's not going to be the
What am I missing?
same amount.
well, what I'm asking, I guess what we're asking, Larry, is would that mean that under the sheriff's department budget, if we were to use that budget, that means the actual budget for sheriff's department increased to $188,126 or 9.1% because you backed out the Poland contract expenditures as well as the revenue on the other side. So I think what we're not seeing is the true increase for the sheriff's department's budget
Well-
to be 9.1% and not the negative 3%, 3.8% as it's in the budget, correct?
Yeah, right. And the sheriff will explain that next week.
And so when we go to the budget detail for the sheriff, those lines aren't preserved even to show 2021 that we expended however much, and now we're planning to budget zero? That's not in there? I guess I could go look too.
Yeah, Mr. Knoll actually. It's on the expenditure.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I just ask one clarifying
Yeah, go
before
for
we
it.
get to that budget? So the RSU, where is that expenditure normally? Where would we have seen that expenditure? Because we have the revenue,
And the sheriff.
so that's on the sheriff as well.
On the
So that
salaries,
means
whatever.
that amount then is different, so it's even higher than that. It's higher than that, so add what, a 90,000, is that what that was?
Yeah.
So add that 90 to the 188, so that's the true increase
So,
to that
Right.
line item.
Sure.
Yeah,
No, and there is an increase in the sheriff's
right.
budget instead of a decrease, but because of those, again, one side and the other
I
side.
know that, excuse me,
Go
Madam
ahead,
Chair.
Mr. Curtis, yeah.
Just when we get to, when we talk to the sheriff's department, so is the sheriff's department showing a negative instead of a 9% increase would have been? So we got to know what their increase would have been, because they could have spent more money than, that. But because we cut off that much money, it's going to be, we're going to have to really do some math to figure out how much the sheriff's department's increase really is, even though it shows a minus. It's
We'll-
truly an increase.
We'll have that
a
whole
large
thing
increase.
next week.
Okay.
Like 270-some-odd thousand.
Do folks have further thoughts on this? I do see the county commission chair is here and taking notes, which I always appreciate, but especially with this year's complicated budget. Mr. Ward,
What are you gonna bring us back next week, Larry? I missed
the
that.
sheriff.
How the sheriff's department, the actual
Can I go one
percentage
further?
increase and so on.
I would like to see what the true budget expenditure increase would have been before this stuff was backed out. I think that has merit. To Mr. Crowell's point, you add that same $400,000 and anything that's been backed out of this budget, what would have been the true expenditures that are now netted because of this outlaw?
So you want to see 9,400 and 9,370 added back in on the expenditure side?
I'd actually go one further. If there are other items associated with that he knows that have been backed out of this budget, what would have been the true expenditure increase that gets us down to this net 3.4?
I think county reserve allocation is part of that. I think.
And thank you for doing that, Larry. In fact, the lights are clicking now.
And one caveat to that?
Go ahead, Mr. Titus.
And also, this is now in a different account that we're not going to see. So I would like to, at some point, somehow, maybe next year, we see the accounting in and out of those accounts. Revenues, expenditures.
We can show those to you
Doing that,
as
'cause I don't know how you can do it with the sheriff's department, say, well, this
Informational
person works for the Poland contract, but this office person, well, they did something for Poland, so we're going to charge it to the Poland contract. Oh, you know, like with the problem with the jail, and when the state was funding part of it, we could charge the state, because that's the state's portion of the jail. So by doing this, it's easy for the wrong stuff to get in there. So I'd certainly like to see the accounting of that, how it washes.
I can tell you with the treasurer we have, wrong stuff doesn't get in.
Well, I'm just, I'm making anecdotally, of course, I don't know, but if if the budget is $300,000 and $400,000 between all the revenue, are we spending every nickel? Or are we spending more than we should, less than that? And where does the surplus go?
Mr. Kroll?
Hey, one last one, Larry. If that was the reasoning was so that it's an in and out, is there a reason why you didn't do that for communications as well?
Only because there are two or three towns that are up July, June, and the rest are January. It would have been much more complicated to do that. And that is more it's not a contract that you can then identify, okay, we gave them exactly this amount of service for that amount of contract. It's a contract of what they pay toward our operation, and you can't divvy it out the way you can the other contracts.
All right, folks. How are we feeling? Good to move on. Agenda item number 5, consideration of the September 15th, 2021 Budget Committee minutes for approval.
A motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second it.
Motion from Mr. Titus, a second from Mrs. Cesare. Any discussion? All those in favor? Keep those hands up. She's cueing us now, perfect. All those
Oh, sorry.
opposed? Abstaining?
Yep.
Great. 11:01, Nichols abstaining. Okay, great. Now we get to the real work. Let's do it. We're going to review, starting with, is Craig here? There he is. Hey, Craig, come on down with 2020 Western Maine Transportation. And Craig, since we've got a bunch of new folks, would you mind giving us a very brief introduction?
Certainly.
Having passed the maze test, I feel accomplished. Good evening. I'm Craig Zerhurst, the Community Relations Director for Western Maine Transportation Services. We have been established since 1976 as the regional transportation provider for Androscoggin, Franklin, and Oxford counties. We also provide service in Brunswick for the Brunswick Explorer Service. Our request before Androscoggin County covers a number of different things that we do here. We are also the contract provider for the CityLink service, but that is not at all involved in our request. That is completely taken care of by Lewiston and Auburn. Within Androscoggin County, we are providing services here in Lewiston, Auburn, outside of CityLink something we refer to as EADA, where we are using the Americans with Disabilities Act bus service to cover areas that are not able to be reached by CityLink. We use EADA. It is not an Americans with Disabilities Act service, but we're using the buses outside of the corridor. We are providing the service in Livermore and Livermore Falls, which is demand response. That continues on up into Farmington, but there's a substantial number of users in the Livermore Falls area, far more than Livermore itself. We provide the Green Line commuter service, which runs from Farmington to Lewiston, Auburn, through Livermore Falls, Livermore, and Turner, also in Auburn and Lewiston, to get people to school, to employment. It goes both ways. We have the Blue Line pilot, which we're operating between Lewiston and Bath currently. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. That was established as a run for employees to an employer. It was a good match of people available for employment here in the Twin Cities going to Bath. That has been a very successful project and is about to take wings and move forward. And there is other additional demand response that's provided throughout the region, mostly in the towns immediately adjacent to Lewiston and Auburn, including Mechanic Falls, Minot, Sabattis, Greene, and then we also have the Lisbon connection, which is provided through Lisbon, but it also runs up into Lewiston 5 times a day. So that's what we do in Androscoggin County. I mentioned the Blue Line is about to take a turn and become a bigger service. We have been operating the Brunswick Explorer since 2016. That service is about to evolve into its next stage, but in doing so, we are going to be able to connect people from Lewiston to Bath and now to Brunswick, as well as possibly to Topsom if we are able to secure permissions. This has been stalled for about 2 years because of a combination of waiting for buses from the state that they got backlogged on, and also waiting for the transit study in Brunswick to be complete so we could make the transition to have the connections work appropriately. Our ridership overall for all of these services has either continued or has started to build back from the levels that we dropped to in the early days of the pandemic. I did not update them, I should have, but what I can tell you is that we're back up on the ridership from October of 2020 through the 11th of August of this year. Green Line, we've already served 765 riders at that point. EADA service is 804, which has gone way up since then. Blue Line, 2,464 rides. In Livermore Falls and Livermore, 557 rides, and other demand response in and around the area, 242. So all of those services are back up by huge percentages what they had dropped to early in the pandemic. So that means that rider confidence is returning. It means that people are having opportunities to get out shopping, get to medical appointments, get to work and to school. So it is building back. Our request this year is going back to a previous request, but it would be a high for what we have requested in the past of $45,000, supporting these services as they're being enhanced and moved forward. The Blue Line service that we've mentioned eventually will evolve to take part of the service that's currently covered through the Lisbon connection, and the Lisbon service will evolve into something else that the town will take care of. All of these things are very exciting, and we would greatly appreciate whatever support the county can lend to this. We certainly understand the economic realities of the time, I'd be glad to take any questions.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Zerhurst? Mr. Ward?
Can you please highlight for new people sitting here, the power that you have, this money and the matching federal funds, that relationship?
Sorry, I did not fully hear you.
The matching ability of the federal.
Oh,
funds,
right,
you can leverage
okay,
this.
thank you for that. The reason I didn't even think to do that is because this, as some may know, has been a bit of a question mark. Western Maine Transportation uses local funding to draw down federal funds as a match. Typically, this is either 50-50 or 80-20. We have had a period through the pandemic where it has been 100%, which has been a godsend because of increased costs. Typically, this comes together as about 60-40. So 40% local, 60% federal. By the time you mix the various programs together, that's what it comes out to. Thank you for that prompt. I thank you very much.
Further questions or discussion on this budget? Mr. Titus?
Oh, thank you. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Again. Couple of questions. As you know, from the beginning, I haven't always been a fan.
Absolutely.
I had probably to admit that, but I did have a couple of questions. One of them, the 804 EADA
Yes.
rides. Are you paid extra for an ADA ride that's,
So we have to separate the ADA from the EADA. The EADA runs on our standard demand response fare schedule and not on the ADA fare schedule.
okay?
See how I can do this quickly, because this is stuff that gets into the weeds. Our ADA fares for CityLink, which this is not part of, are twice the normal fare because it's considered a premium service. We're going curb to curb as opposed to someone walking to a stop. The charge for the EADA is approximately the same fare as the CityLink non-ADA fare. And that's because it is a standard non-premium service. It's just what it is for the area outside of the area served by CityLink. So I hope I haven't further confused it, but it's a good question.
No, I'm saying, do you get extra payments? Like when you go curb to curb for somebody who has a disability and you go pick them up? Do you
Only
get paid extra?
for ADA, but that is through CityLink, and that's with just Lewiston and Auburn, and does not apply to the
Because you'd mentioned
EADA.
804, the ridership, 804, the EADA is something that's part of your contract. You don't
Right,
get anything extra.
EADA is different from ADA.
Okay.
What we're doing, as we have the ADA bus or buses running around, they are on scheduled pickups for ADA. When they're not being used for that, we are able to take those assets, the drivers and buses, and go out beyond where the normal CityLink corridor is to get people either last mile service if they're coming in from either Lisbon or the Green Line to get to their destinations, or get people who want to come in to use CityLink or Lisbon Connection or Green Line to have them meet up with the buses or whatever. So it's just another, it's a bad name we need to change, but there's never been a good moment to make that change, because honestly, the way it's set up, we're not at a point of permanence with it yet. It's kind of an experiment, but it's been one that's worked. So I apologize for the
Confusion, but there's no
confusion
extra,
that
there's
name
no-
can cause.
There's no extra payments to you
No.
for those, not at all?
No.
Okay, and the other thing was, last, when I first talked to you a few years back when we started this, my only concern was that no other communities wanted to participate. No other towns and cities wanted to chip in on this program. I don't know if Franklin County does now or not.
No, Franklin County doesn't, but we are getting support from individual towns up there right now. A little bit from Farmington, quite a bit from Wilton. We're still working through that process. Franklin County has its own situation politically now. As you know, they're going to be voting on expanding the number of commissioners, not unlike what Androscoggin did a few years back. And they're working through a number of other issues, not related simply to Western Maine Transportation, but it's
Yeah.
countywide. Every all of our services, the accounting is done separately. So there cannot be too much commingling of funds and still have us be in the good graces of Maine DOT. So when you say other towns, the problem we had in Androscoggin County was there are a number of towns that opted not to fund individually, even though they were receiving services.
Right. And that was my concern, because I know that I was told at the beginning, Andy, this is going to be a great move towards regional transportation.
And it is with the
But I
green
don't
line, right, with the
see
green
funding
line.
backing that up.
Well, okay, so there's another thing, and I was going to try not to get too deep into this, but this is great. And Phil, you can probably help me with this if you would, or maybe Amy Landry back there. We are at the end stages of the Androscoggin Transportation Resource Group, the ATRC, doing a broader study. Did they wrap that up? Okay, so we're waiting for the report now, is that right? And that is going to be, along with what we've already done with the Blue Line, what we're trying to do with the ADA and reaching out with the other demand response services, and with the Blue Line, this is going to continue to help us to further regionalize by putting a stamp of approval and a firm direction on what's happening with the interlocal agreement with Lewiston, Auburn, Lisbon, and Sabattis, and other things that are happening in the immediately connected communities. And it's really pretty exciting, but until the report is actually out and we can read it, we don't know all of the recommendations.
I understand that part. Thank you very much.
Thank you, good questions.
Further questions or discussion on this budget? Seeing none, is there a motion anyone would like to make? Mr.
I'll make a
Pickles?
motion for 42,500.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mrs. Cesare? All right, all those in favor? All those opposed?
For the record,
Yeah.
I would support 45 as presented.
Oh, shoot, what number did you say?
42.5.
42.5.
Oh,
45 is the reason I voted in dissension.
my apologies. Did everyone understand that? Because I did not.
I did, I heard 42.5.
Okay.
I heard clearly.
Well, it passes for 42.5.
And we thank you very much. We appreciate that.
And that went 9-3.
9-3, we can
We'll
revote on
revisit
that
that, revisit that.
when we have our full board.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night, stay well. Thank you, Larry.
All right, folks, we'll move on to the Twin Counties Extension Association, 2005.
Good evening, everybody. Just to go along with the printout that should be hopefully in front of you for the budget request.
Sorry, who are you?
This is Viviana.
Okay,
I'm the
sorry, I
vice chair.
can't see with the glasses and the mask.
No worries.
Thank you.
So I am Viviana Mendoza, the current vice chair for the Androscoggin Saginaw Counties Extension Association. And with me this evening is Lynn Holland, our county horticulture and statewide social media professional, and Melissa Freeman, our office manager. The Co-op Extension Association provides all of the logistical support, offices, phones, internet, et cetera, for the operations of the Co-op Extension staff in our offices. Those folks are involved in a myriad of programs the Extension continuously provides, such as the 4-H program, farmer business training, food and nutrition programs, in particular for limited income families, and the Master Gardener Volunteer Program, which helps to connect our local food to those who need it. Staff salaries and benefits excluding our administrative assistant are paid by the University of Maine. We simply provide the local home base in Lisbon Falls for their activities and as a connection to the community. As we fully expect to be at normal and full operations this year, we respectfully ask you, the commissioners, to provide funding for Androscoggin County's fiscal year 22 in the amount of $51,154, which is 63% of the ASCEA's annual budget and in line with previous requests. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for our friends?
If I can make an observation, last year, they asked for $51,799, so the actual request this year is less. Their budget showed $45,000. The commissioners had cut it below that, and you brought it up to 45. So you actually cut their budget last year, and what this does, it pretty much just puts back to where they were in the previous years.
Thank you for that note, Mr.
Thank you.
Post. I do want to thank you for all of the great information in here, and we also had some youth come and speak at the public hearing last year, which was really great to hear about. I still think about that youth participation and how great that was, so I'm appreciative. Any budget members have questions? Anyone have a motion they'd like to make?
Make the motion as is, 51,154.
Motion from Mr. Ward, do I have a second?
A second.
Mr. Titus? All right. Any other questions? All those in favor? All right. All those opposed? It was unanimous. 12-0. So that is all set. We won't be voting on that again. We thank you for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Landry, I do know you're here. We're going to AvCog 2002. I know you want more paper, so here you go.
I didn't know what was in, so,
Oh.
I'm providing more paper, so.
We've got that in there already.
I think we got it already, yeah.
So, good evening. My name is Amy Landry, and I'm the Executive Director at AvCog, the Androscoggin Valley Council of Governments. For those of you who aren't familiar with our organization, we are federally designated Regional Planning and Development District. We serve Androscoggin, Franklin, and Oxford County. We are also designated under state statute as a Regional Planning Commission. So we provide a variety of services throughout our territory, which are highlighted in what was in your packets, but if you look at the inserts, these are specific to Androscoggin County. So we've kind of outlined some of our major programs. It doesn't, entail everything that we do at AvCog, but it is in 3 primary areas: economic development, planning, and transportation. So I just wanted to highlight some of the things that we've done over the last year since I last was here speaking to you. So we've been in full operation this entire year, really supporting in our economic development programs, recovery and resiliency for our communities and our small businesses. So quickly highlight some of the things we've done. Through a partnership with the state of Maine and their CARES Act funding, they dispersed through regional organizations like us, Maine Economic Recovery Grants. So AvCog, assisted with that application process, and we actually dispersed the funds to small business. So in Androscoggin County alone, out of 178 applications, we granted to 162 businesses $7.463 million. Under our COVID Micro Enterprise Grant, which is another state-funded through the Community Development Block Grant Program, we have granted 25 businesses, $124,000, a little bit over that, just in this last year for COVID recovery. as an example. We continue to do our business advising. We directly lend to small business, so we have loan pools that we operate that we provide direct lending loans to small business as well. We do regional tourism promotion. We are a designated tourism region for the state of Maine, so Maine Lakes and Mountains Tourism Council receives funds to promote Western Maine as a tourist destination. So we work with that program as well. We are federally designated by the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration to do comprehensive economic development strategy planning for our entire region. So we are embarking this year on a 5-year strategy that we will be beginning just in the next month or so with input from all of our communities and our counties for what we want to see for our region, in the next 5 years, but beyond that, and how we can make this region more resilient to any sort of threat, whether that be a pandemic or a natural disaster or anything, a significant employer loss, as an example. So those are some of the things there. Brownfields redevelopment is something else you do. You'll see a list of projects that we've done in Androscoggin County. That's either been through environmental assessments, so we receive funding from US EPA to do assessments, so we receive a grant that then we can assess these sites. So what you've seen here means we've either done a phase 1 or phase 2 assessment of those sites, and we provide cleanup funding for eligible projects. So we actually have a revolving loan fund that's only for our 3 counties for cleaning up environmentally contaminated sites for redevelopment. So that's all in here as well. Our municipal planning is really working with individual municipalities, planning boards, code enforcement officers, ordinance development, comprehensive plan development. So we have planners that work with the various municipalities to assist them with all of those types of services. GIS mapping, household hazardous waste collection are things we operate as well. Joint purchasing, so our municipalities can purchase road salt through us through a joint purchasing agreement, which really saves them approximately around 10% from the normal purchase price. We will be going out to bid for that next year, so every year that can change, but typically we do see a savings by purchasing that jointly. I'll just point out, since Craig was here, so there isn't any confusion, if you look at the transportation section, you will see ATRC, which is Androscoggin Transportation Resource Center, and Lewiston Auburn Transit Committee, which is the CityLink bus system. AvCog does staff both of those transportation organizations. However, any county funds do not go to support those programs. Those are fully supported either by Federal Highway, Federal Transit Administration, and the cities of Lewiston and Auburn for the CityLink bus system. So we would not use our assessment dues for those programs. I'll just point, to the use of, I don't know which page it's on. I guess you'll see kind of in the bottom chart what our dues or our memberships contributions are, that third, the orange sliver there. It's really not a lot of money in our full budget, but it's very important funds because we get a lot of federal funds, but they're not full, nothing is usually fully funded. So we can use, that's the only unrestricted money we have to match those federal funds. So if we don't have those dollars, oftentimes we can't draw down those programs to be able to offer them to the region. So that's really what your dues go to support. So I'll stop there and I'll take any questions.
And there's a county commissioner who sits on AvCog, correct?
Yeah, so we have a vacancy right now, but.
Right now, actually, we filled it, but we haven't gotten to you yet.
He hasn't
Yes.
told me who it's going to
It
be.
was Commissioner Major, and so,
Yes.
okay, great,
Yeah.
awesome. Did I see Mr. Kroll with a hand up? No. You.
Yes.
All right, here we go.
We keep seeing increases, is it just pretty much $250 a year, keep?
That's really an estimate that Larry just put in. I mean, it could really be lower than that. It's big.
How
So
is it figured?
we don't assess our dues until December. So when our board, our executive committee will approve dues assessments in December, then we will know that actual number. is based by formula. So he was estimating based on.
Yeah, and the last couple of years, my estimates have been pretty much right on the line.
And how's
We
that?
pay it in September, so we just paid it.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So you just paid for this year. So we set dues in December, we invoice in January, but they're not due till the September. So these would be like next September.
but it looks like it has traditionally gone up every year, so it looks like it's.
Well, I think the last 2 years, there might have been the small increase, but this year there may be none. I mean, it is based on formula unless the board decides, by formula and then does an
Right.
increase, a budgeted increase. So we won't know that until December, but
Now, do we, maybe Larry, you can answer this, do we directly use any of their services, or are we simply just supporting them as a member? What services do we particularly directly use as a county? Not the town, us as a county.
That's always a difficult question to answer, simply because as they help all of the towns, it helps the region as a whole, it helps the county. I know some of the things, I have some maps that they provided in my office that, it's a small thing, but it's a pretty big thing when you need something and don't
Can we
have
do
it.
that free of charge? I thought there was a charge for using GIS.
not.
No.
No.
So we have a technical assistance policy, which essentially gives people so much without being charged for that.
I see, okay.
So, I mean, in the past, just to give you kind of an example, so that's an example, but we, when the building committee at one time, AvCog helped and served with that. The Androscoggin EMA plan, worked on that. Actually, Joan Walton really was big in writing up that plan. So it really, I mean, from year to year, you never know what that might be. Whether it's applying for a grant that, we could provide some technical assistance or support to, we can provide that service.
Okay.
So I guess we don't know from year to year what that might be.
No, I do understand. I just question, and again, I respect your organization and what you do, and you help the towns out dramatically, but I see that Franklin doesn't pay any dues, right? They're one of the other
So
counties.
I would just go with what Craig
It's
said.
so, it just seems to me that maybe, it's not necessary for us to fund this where the other towns are, but,
Oxford County is a member, has been for many years. Franklin County is no longer, but, as Craig said, there's various reasons for that, I think. It's not just AvCog that they're not paying.
oh, and I'm not saying that's anything personal for
Yeah.
AvCog. I mean, I've worked with you folks for a long time, but I just think it's a city and town thing, and we're just simply, maybe just adding our support with the $7,000 and not necessarily getting $7,000 worth of
Well, you
benefit.
you are able to be at the table to participate and serve on a board. So you have a
Yeah.
county seat is, by being a member, you're automatically part of our board, of our executive committee. So, there is a role there to participate in any of what the board's deciding to do with funding or anything like that.
My experience with COGS over the years is that, you'll go, it all depends. Some year you may need way more assistance than what our dues are, and then you'll go 2 or 3 years with, not needing as much assistance. And so it varies, and as Amy says, you can't tell from one year to the next exactly what kind of assistance you're going to need and what they can provide. But it's an important, and I was one of the, when I first got here, I kind of shook my head in disbelief that we weren't a member of AvCog, and I discovered that indeed we had been years before, but that we had lapsed our membership and never got back in, and so I think it's an important organization, and it also serves regionally as we do, and I'm looking for, in the future, great things that we can do together.
Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, from a personal note, I've got a real estate background, and I've worked with AvCog a number of times regarding economic development and planning, none in transportation, but I think they're just a wonderful organization. You want me to start over?
No, I don't know.
I think they're a wonderful organization, and I think what they're asking for is a minor increase, and I would make a motion that we accept the $7,750 and pass it.
I heard that from Mr. Morgan and seconded from Mr. Curl. Any further discussion on this? Thank you, Ms. Cesare, for the audio assistance. All those in favor? All right, signals down. All those opposed? That passes 11-1. We will not vote on that again. Thank you, Ms. Landry.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
All right, moving right along to 2035 Soil Conservation District. Come on down.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Mackenzie Richard. I am the district administrator for the Androscoggin Valley Soil and Water Conservation District. I wanted to introduce tonight our new project director. This is Emma. She was hired at the beginning of September. She is primarily taking on my role as the district manager. I've realized that there's been so much inactivity since the pandemic occurred. We're not hosting as many in-person events, and that is primarily what we do at the Soil and Water Conservation District. We focus on education and outreach. We connect with local farmers. We have a strong relationship with the NRCS, who is here in Lewiston. We work in their office, and they provide support for our small local farmers. But I am here tonight to request a continuation of the $14,000 so that we can get back to pre-pandemic activity at the district. We are planning on hosting in-person events again. We used to host one a month typically. Some of those generated revenue, most of them did not. They're purely for educational purposes. And Emma is here to help us get back up to speed. She'll be with us full time, and that reflects in our budget for 2022. And if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Okay. Any questions for Mackenzie or Emma on this subject?
I had a quick question. Larry, do you know what your actuals were for 2019 to provide that balance of post?
I'm sorry, my actual
amount that you spent in 2019?
I don't have 2,000, I don't have that,
Handy.
but that's something that I could send.
I was just curious to see if that's where, if you were.
Sure.
consistent
Oh,
with those.
It was 2019 probably was very close to that because we did have 2 employees at that time. I've been a part-time employee since I was hired in 2018. Our project manager, Jocelyn, left us a couple months after I signed on. And then our new employee after that left us right when the pandemic began. So we've been operating with 1 part-time employee for 2 counties since March 2020. And hiring a new person and training them with the office closing down every couple of months has been difficult. But in 2021, we purchased a Zoom account, and it broadened our outreach as far as online events and things like that. And we were able to host interviews and go through that process all online. But now Emma is here at the office in Lewiston, and I will be working part-time still. So with that 2-person budget, 2 employees, I think it will look pretty similar.
Any further questions? Mr. Morgan?
Yes, I was just wondering if you could give me an example of what a couple of the in-person events were, just to give an idea.
Oh, for that we're planning?
That we're planning?
Or that, okay. Sure, Emma.
So next month, we're hoping to do a bat conservation workshop, so information on local species found in Maine, white nose syndrome, which is a fungal disease that infects bats during hibernation, and also in conjunction with that educational component, also building bat boxes. So inviting people to learn about and then also building boxes so they can bring back to their houses. So that's just one thing that we're doing.
We have the local working group for the NRCS plan. We're hosting that at a farm in Androscoggin County. That is an event that we host every year, and it's open to the public. and that is also in October.
Correct.
So we've got 2 events so far.
Yeah, I'm also looking at hopefully hosting a few children's programs, involving leaves, things like that.
Okay.
And possibly kayak paddle as well.
Thank you very much. This is an organization that went right over my head. I didn't even know it existed.
We're
So
here.
We're here.
I appreciate you being here and giving me a little bit of what you do.
Yeah, thank
No,
you so much.
we're here, we support and work with local farmers, that's very important to us. Educating the public and our communities about the health of our water systems, especially in the Androscoggin. Like Emma said, we very often work with schools, we host workshop with children, but also field visits and things like that, and, but also with adults alike. We've also been back in touch with the DEP. They're hosting in-person events again for their erosion control workshops, and we'll be hosting those, probably starting like this winter at some point, and, yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, January we'll do those.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you.
Further thoughts? Mr. Pelletier?
I'd like to make a motion, we fund the full amount, $14,000.
Great, motion from Mr. Pelletier. Do I have a second?
Yep, seconded.
Who's, Nova?
Go ahead, yep.
We'll let you get in on the action. All right, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, full amount? It is unanimous, but we're gonna keep our hands up. Here she's still, sorry. I was premature on that. All right, so that's 12-0. We won't be voting on that budget again. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you very
Thanks so
much.
much.
Have a great evening.
All right, 2025 employee benefits, is this you, Clarice?
Yep, that's me.
Okay, cool.
So these are all best guess at this point. We don't have the rates yet. And what I've done is I go through and see what current usage is, and I did a 5% increase. But until the rates come in, we really don't know.
And when do we normally get rates? Much later, yes?
End of October.
Yeah,
November.
end of October, 1st of November is normally when we know.
Okay, if we get them before October 20th, we might include them. I don't think that's ever happened before.
Yeah,
Okay,
it didn't last year, but again.
Year before, yeah.
okay, cool.
Clarice, on that, what was last year's increase? I know you budgeted 5% last year.
Yeah.
What was the actual last year?
What did the rate come in last year?
Oh, it was,
It's a whole year ago.
yeah, it was pretty low. I've lost it, but it wasn't very high
What was
because,
it? Is it under the 5?
I believe it
That's where I'm
was.
trying-
I believe it was, yeah.
Is that an anomaly, or was that where they've been landing?
it's normally been around 5. It's,
You hedging your bets? All right, you good?
Last year we handled this with a blanket reduction, and they figured it out. I'm in that camp again this year if we're gonna make such an adjustment.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in? Mr. Kroll?
Just a quick question, the Maine State Retirement benefit, will the county be because they're offering this opt-in for those who were not part of Maine State Retirement, has the county taken action on that? And could we potentially see an increase with that?
all right, I got Maine State Retirement, and
Maine State Retirement, you had to opt in when you first were employed. If you did not opt in, then you were no longer eligible for Maine State Retirement. Maine State Retirement is now offering
right,
a chance to come back in, but it's really up to the county to determine whether or not you allow that. I'm just wondering if the county is planning to do that, and could we see a potential increase here if you did?
We haven't had a conversation about that yet.
yeah. A, we're not sure, but B, one of the things we do is for those who don't take Maine State Retirement, we offer them a 457. We started doing that about the time I got here. And,
Is it the same interest, is it the same percentage? or-
no, actually, it's less. The 457, the county provides 6% instead of the 10 for,
The city does,
Yes.
okay. All right, so what's driving the main PERS up 18,000 then?
Usage, new employees joining. Like I said, I took the usage of who's signed up for it right now. And I think it was last year it went up, actually, but, and just went by that. So actual usage.
Mr. Pelletier, we'll go there first.
Larry, how many employees is this, these benefits?
last time I saw a count was 147.
147.
Mr. Morgan?
Well, I'm sorry, because, no, the insurance, the health insurance and all of that, that's just for county side, not the jail side. The jail is separated because of the way the state funding comes. So that's, 80, around 80.
80?
All right, now we'll go to Mr. Morgan.
Larry, do you expect to go over? I'm looking at the numbers here and just curious, do you expect to go over on the 221 expenditures this year?
I'm not expecting to right
No.
now, no.
We think we're going to be okay.
Okay.
It's a timing, kind of a timing thing right now that you're seeing.
Okay.
Mr. Titus?
Thank you. A couple quick questions, Larry. This number does not include the benefits that are when we have a shared account or one that is partially funded by another county or by a match anywhere. That shows like in the DA's budget, they had the witness protection, witness, whatever it was, the retribution person that split between the counties, so you put the benefits there. Some of these employees, that we put the benefits in their actual,
Where they're
right?
charged.
So that's not in this. That's
No.
over, we have to add them all up. And the same would be true with employees. Is it possible to get a total number, dollar amount for salaries for the county? Is that something that's
Salaries for the county.
Total salary.
total salaries, everybody, the whole county? Would that?
So back with what we were talking about earlier with the Poland contract, did you back out the Poland amounts out of here?
We did,
So that 5% increase is recognizing that?
right.
How many employees is that? Is it 2 now, or must be more than that?
It's 24-hour coverage.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just hired 2 and we had, I think there's 4 now.
4, I think.
Mr. Ward?
Again, I mentioned it last year, the way we handled this was a blanket adjustment and let Clarice pick where the groceries actually got delivered. To her point, a 5% increase on the health would actually be significantly less than the 8.4% that actually is displayed here. And looking at what's supposed to be a 3% increase for the wages that the rest of these items that should be based on, I'm making the recommendation that we reduce the division by $30,000.
Much? Reduced by $30,000, Clarice? Which takes us to
That's Mr. Ronnie's wheelhouse.
I know, who can get on their calculator faster? All right, so that would take our new total to $2,472,745. Does that sound right to you?
Yes,
Great. Is that a motion?
that would be my motion.
Motion by Mr. Ward. Do I have a second on that reduction?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Titus. I am going to consider that the whole thing. We're not going to vote on that and then the budget, so.
Clarice was able to pick where she thought that needed to be dialed in, and it was just easier.
Oh, dear.
I know, it was, she did well, because we're.
Because we wanted to do
No,
it again.
well, the point that I actually would make is I looked at this a half a dozen different ways, and I came to the same thing that she just said. She's expecting that they're tracking where we landed on the existing budget. And we took $40,000 out of that budget last year, the same recommendation. So I'm hopeful for the same situation to present itself here.
There's only so many times you're gonna be
I
able to
know.
do that.
Thank you, owe her some flowers. Any other comments on, we're now looking at employees' benefit budget at $2,472,745. Any further questions, comments, feelings? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, Clarice, and also sorry. And we'll move on to, is Tina here? There she is. Registry of Deeds. Sorry, it's really hard with the glasses and masks tonight. I know. Feel like I'm looking through a haze.
Hi. I'm Tina Schwanard. I'm the Register of Deeds for Androscoggin County, in case no one knows who I am. And I'm pretty much the same as last year, so if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. I did restore a couple lines, hoping that I can attend the convention and maybe have some meals. But
We have a
other than that-
3% increase in wages.
Yep, same as everybody else, and the step adjustments,
Okay.
same as everybody
And step
else.
adjustments, great.
Yep.
Mr. Manager?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Ward.
To that point, the fact that each of these positions are actually due a step increase. It's $8,100 line item, it's 4.6%. Each of those positions has to have a step increase because it's significantly higher, just for the general.
And you restored $800 for travel? No. Well,
Yep, the
Okay,
meals and lodging,
perfect,
it's basically for the convention,
great.
hoping that there will be one.
We hope for that too. All right. Mr. Morgan?
I'd make a motion that we approve it as written at the 202,974.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Was that Mr. Pelletier?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions, further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor as is? It's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Chouinard.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Ward.
You want to do revenues while she's sitting there?
Oh, come on back, Tina. Sorry, we're gonna bind your revenues too, real quick.
okay.
And the question I
Give us
have.
the
is,
line on it.
It's 9075, registry of deeds.
So if everyone, I know we got a lot of new folks, expenditures, revenues tab, and what was it, 9275?
9075.
9075, thank you.
Mr. Post is actually recommending a $600,000 amount,
Mhm.
which is
$25,000.
$25,000 increase over the previous year.
Yep,
She's been tracking somewhere between 596, 642, as high as 694 during COVID. I think that is a realistic number over the trend to include that as is as well.
At the 600?
I would make that recommendation.
I have a motion from Mr. Ward,
Second.
second from Mr. Kroll. Any discussion? You feel comfortable with that number?
yes, I do.
I assume so because it's in the book, but. Great, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you for coming back.
You're welcome.
Thank you for getting that. All right, and now Tom's up. Yes? Yes. Come on down, Tom.
Mr. Crowell.
Good evening, folks.
Crowell did.
Hello, excuse me. My name is Tom Reynolds. I'm the Register of Probate. And the smallest budget in the overall scheme of the county. A couple of things I want to highlight. One, with the salaries and wages, along with increasing the 3%, I have proposed increasing the registers my hours by 5 hours a week. And this is in particular to support the project for the shelving. We were able to move forward with the shelving project, which is a lot of time intensive in the scope of that project. And overall, I feel that in support of the staff and the office as a whole, historically, this position used to be full-time, and I believe it was back in the 80s that the Register at that time had wanted to take a teaching position, an adjunct teaching position at Central Maine Community College, and that's when they adjusted it to a part-time position. I am the only part-time Register in the state of Maine, and so that is one of the biggest proposals in this budget. The court-appointed attorneys line has been, the proposal is reduced from 22,000 last year to 15,000. Larry and I conferred in the preparation of this budget, and you kept it at 20. I stand corrected.
Yeah, you got the whole 22 in there.
Yeah. Along with other departments, what we are looking to do is to restore the previous reimbursement for automobile mileage, meals, lodging, and other travel expenses. Another item that was increased due to our lack of control is line 4675, the online service maintenance program. When we moved to Windows 10, it did not come without unintended problems, including our court recording software had to be upgraded because it was not compatible with Windows 10. And in that process, along with the hefty fee for the upgrade in software, was it was advantageous for us to get the maintenance agreement to go along with that, and I'm glad we did. We've been very fortunate. I've been here, 4 or 5, pushing 6 years now, and we've never had an issue with it, but it's an important tool that we need to have, and we actually did need it earlier this year when automatic updates had occurred. So I've incorporated that, the $749, in the overall budget line, bringing it up to $3,249. And office supplies has been increased, and that is actually just shift. There is a modest increase, but also a shift to move the printing and reproduction line and consolidate that. And finally, I've incorporated a line 4940 for ongoing staff training of $500. And this includes tools for Excel and Word to remain abreast of developments and ways that we can improve our efficiency in the service that we provide to the public. And finally, line 5510, an increase of $500 for statutes and reference. I welcome any questions.
Just because you didn't follow up with, so Tom is the only part-time registrar in the state, but the Androscoggin County Registry of Probate does the third most business in the state, so
Third or fourth.
he's using his time well.
Well, and the staff is,
And staff.
they're the ones that are impacted by that, too.
I think that's a pride point, personally. Any questions, comments?
Real quick,
We'll go to
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Nichols. You haven't.
I was just going to
talked yet.
ask about the attorney's fees, if that is something that can come down.
Actually, by statute, we're required to pay it.
Right.
And within that, for a comprehensive understanding, that includes guardian ad litems, transcribing, interpreters, and court-appointed attorneys. And with the adoption of the new probate code last year, we are required to provide attorneys in cases where unfortunate circumstances where parental rights are being terminated. They have a right to a lawyer. And people that are respondents in petitions for guardianship, so whether it's elderly or incapacitated people in general, they have a right to legal counsel as well. And in the process of petitioning the court for guardianship of somebody who is in an incapacitated state, part of that process is that a court-appointed visitor meets with the respondent and the proposed guardian or guardians. And in that process, they are specifically asked, are you aware that an attorney can be available for you?
Right, I understand that.
Yeah.
My question
And-
was, can you get by with $15,000 as opposed to 22, because you were expecting it?
So, and the short answer is possibly so, but we can't predict what that could be. And another mitigating factor that I wanted to share with you tonight is that previously, court-appointed attorneys, we paid $60 per hour, and as of July 15th and moving forward, that's been up to $80 an hour by the state court system. And for us, if we could, stick with $60, but we would be hard-pressed to find lawyers that, to fulfill those roles. And so the short answer is that you can lower it, but by statute, we're required to pay it. And that's the reality of the situation. And if we don't budget for it, where does it come from? That's the challenge that we face.
Madam Chair?
We were going to go to Mr. Titus next, or is it related? It's related, Mr. Ward.
Do you have a motion on that?
Not yet. I was going to listen to other discussions and whatnot.
I mean, actual is tracking the fact that if you take that there, it's estimated to come in somewhere around 17. Now, to his point, that is history as the courts are opening up.
Yep.
But there is latitude associated with actual to be able to make a reduction in that line item.
What I would say to that, Mr. Ward, so I have expended from July was at 7,700. We've spent almost $3,000 since then in the ensuing time, and so I think we're closer to pace to the 22 now that the courts are open. When did you give me this, Larry? Was this July numbers?
Mhm.
Yeah. so
Yeah,
I-
that's what went to the commissioners.
Yeah, so
And then we
we've added
updated
about
them for you.
3,000 to that expenditure, so I think we're a little closer to the pace of 22,000.
No, that's fair. Enough, that gives an idea that the court's opening to.
Right, and if I could, there's no predicting of who and when these services can be required. So it's not like we run sales on them and say, come to the probate court, we'll throw in a lawyer.
Just for the record, I mean, I'm not looking at cutting anything. I just, and understand what these are for. It's just, you thought then, when you were presenting, that it was 15 and it was actually 20.
We originally talked about that. and
Yeah,
then-
I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Titus?
I just wanted an explanation on the line 4836, postage passports.
Yes.
So, I mean,
All right, so we have postage for regular business of the court itself, which is the 1070. And the passport postage is specifically a line item for our passport acceptance agents, and any mailings that we do for that service goes under that line. So every day, pretty much, we have, it's like $5.05 of priority mail packages that go out.
See, so that's not paid for by, when somebody does a passport, I know they pay a large fee. That's in our revenues, right? It's just mixed in with the probate revenues. It's not a separate line for passport revenues?
No, it's in the regular.
It's just
probate
mixed in with the regular, okay.
Right, but a part of being acceptance agents is that we're required to mail out passport applications every day at a certain time. For us, it's 3 o'clock, and we, part of the cost of that is that we're incurred the priority mail of, for expedited and separately the routine service one. So it can be, $10 a day.
And we don't collect that when somebody's using
No, we
our
don't.
service? I know that.
Right, we have as agents, we are required to accept a $35 acceptance fee.
Yeah. Okay, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Further questions?
Comment.
Yes, sir.
He has actually addressed one of the things that highlights, to the point of the 3% on budget, the revenue, not revenues, salaries, it's an 8.3%. He's already indicated in his explanation that he's dedicated additional 5 hours to the Shelving project, because if you look at the revenue wage detail, his fee is 27% increase. To justify why that's there is because of the 5 hours. Your clerk must also be entitled to a step this year, because that's an 8%.
Yes.
8%.
Yes, and our deputy register is maxed out
Perfect.
in steps. And that's all calculated in.
Just wanted it on record for the people sitting behind you associated with that.
I appreciate that.
They're not only based on where people are in the pay scale. The one piece that I would offer on my last point is, I see no issue with the specifics of the expenses. The one piece that I would go to is, again, on his revenues, 9125, registry of probate. The recommendation is to accept that at 150,000. Prior to COVID, the department was tracked at 175,000. Now the courts are opening back up. I'd like to see that we actually get back to that level associated. We have an idea where they're tracking year to date, please, to get us better indication.
Revenues for line 9125, do we know what we have in to date?
For current, they're a little bit under budget, not as bad as last year, but they are starting to come back up to, but not completely.
Okay, so we're looking at right now at 107,000. Where do you estimate that they're going to be at the end of the year?
Right, 140. Could I ask what the year-to-date on this revenue sheet is?
Yeah.
Do we have that somewhere in
We
here?
don't have the capability.
I don't think we have it.
Well, we have the actual year-to-date for 2021 at 107,067. When was this done? Well,
That was done, no, the end of August.
Color version, the next year.
Yeah, so it was 107.
107. So
To
the question-
answer your question.
Right.
I'm guessing
Where's Clary's thinking
140
land
maybe.
is?
how many more months?
Is it going to be higher than 150?
I don't think they're gonna make 150,
No.
140 maybe.
So that's the basis of your recommendation. So
Madam Chair.
what was the anomaly going on in 2018-19 to have it be considerably higher, I guess, is the question I have.
Mr.
Yes.
Reynolds?
Well, I would offer that the passports are a large addition to the revenue that is incurred with, dockets, filing fees, and related things. And by my calculations, I think we did some $34,300 in 2019. And, last year, for passports, we brought in $11,060. So there was a marked decrease. And it's the nature of the landscape that there was nothing we could do about it. Also, proud of the fact that we incorporated the service of pictures, photo IDs, or photos to go with the passport service. We used to, send people to CVS or other places, but by incorporating it in-house, we were able to increase the convenience for the people that we serve, but it also, in 2019, brought in $11,265 last year, because nobody was doing passports due to the U.S. Department of State. We brought in $4,080, and that business, revenue stream is increasing. It's not close to where it was in 2019, but it is slowly coming back.
So would this be a good place to use 20K of lost revenues from ARP funding, apply it to Tom's budget, and soften that over the years, like we were talking about earlier? Does that make sense, Mr. Grohl? You're a good litmus test for that. Does that make sense to you?
No, it totally did. What I didn't know.
Because we have lost 20K in your line of revenue due to the global pandemic, and people cannot travel, and why would they need a passport?
Right, and if I could just add one caveat, that the dockets, the filings of regular, what we do in the probate court, in 2019, I think we had 585. Despite all that happened last year, we were at 516, and right now, currently, as of this week, we're at 422, so we're ahead in just regular filings. So, and I'm also very proud of the fact that our office continued to support the people in need in Androscoggin County, despite all that was going on with, that's just an anecdotal kind of thing.
Yeah, to your ask, I didn't know if we had that capability on a revenue by revenue item, because you can clearly see just in the statistics that he's bringing, there's a $25,000 reduction,
Yeah.
clearly.
Due to no fault of your office.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Larry.
You can't use that as revenue under the way the rules are written. You can use it for governmental services, but you
Under
can't use it to offset revenue.
No, but I'm highlighting the point, the fact that there's 25
Right.
specifically to this,
Sure.
to Crowell's point that we had earlier in the evening, that there's $25,000 that we've had reductions that could be offset on operating costs if
Right.
we choose to do
Right.
so, based on this one item alone.
Yeah.
I'm
And-
the horse, because in that regard, it's a 25% increase in reduction in revenues for the coming year. We need to address that, of course, because it's gonna be felt on our communities in this budget. That's where I'm living. I am gonna make the motion that we accept this as is, but I'm not gonna let that complaint go. Whether it be at this meeting, the next meeting, or the final meeting associated with it. We talked about ARPA. Some of that needs to come back.
I have a motion from Mr. Ward to accept as is on the expenditure side. We'll address revenues separately in a second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Morgan, thank you. Any further discussions on 1070? All right, all those in favor? All right, it is unanimous. Would you like to move to revenues, Mr. Ward?
As is, that was me being the ass.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we're continuing as is here, 150 in revenue. I have a motion from Mr. Ward. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Titus, thank you. Sorry to make us take it.
Yeah, no
separately.
problem.
Mr. Grohl.
So just to get the clarification, I don't think I got the answer on the page that we have on revenue that shows our to-date for 2021, what's the date that this was done? That's the question I don't think I got answered yet.
I think it's 8:31.
August, I think.
I believe, Phil, that was done on 8:30. I think that was done the same day that we did the.
So we're actually tracking then $157,000 for revenue for probate. If we were to look at that now, it could vary because of what month we're bringing in the additional revenue, but I'm assuming monthly, we're seeing a bit of an increase if we were to go back and look at the revenue increases.
Because we were
We might have
three-quarters of
been
the way
less in
through the year.
beginning. We're slowly climbing, but if you were to do the average over the month, we should be coming in at 157,000 if it was done at the end of August. Then you'd have 4 more months of 12,500, somewhere in there, so.
Yeah.
A real question, Madam Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Do you see a pent-up demand in passports? Are people holding back, but then as soon as the coast is clear, we might see a tremendous increase and a surge in passport requests?
Yeah, right, and so I think you're absolutely right, Mr. Titus, that earlier this year, when the U.S. Department of State gave the go-ahead for us to provide passport service again, that there was, people are coming out and they're traveling, and yes, I think that the short answer is yes, is that people, if the landscape, we don't know what, tomorrow, next month, or whatnot with the virus situation will be, but as it stands now, people are anxious to travel.
They are. That was my point. That's why I was going to consider that we raise that a bit. I know that we don't want to go too far, maybe to the original levels, but I got to believe that all of next year, we're going to start seeing an increase, and where we're trying to find anything we can to reduce this 12.5% increase. I'd be willing to maybe make a motion that we increase that to 160. Would you be comfortable with a $10,000 increase?
If that is your, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Well, I would make that motion if anyone.
Well, would you
Madam Chair.
accept that as a friendly?
Yeah, I was gonna say, point of order, the
Yeah.
fact is, he's my second.
So,
I
if
would
you're
accept,
into
I
it.
would accept the 160 to go 10,000,
I think,
based on Mr. Crowell's information.
I think that's appropriate, given the numbers we're tracking at. All right, so now the motion before us is to accept line 9125 revenues for registry of probate at 160K. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you very much, folks.
Where are we at? 1020 commissioners. Isn't that you, Larry?
Okay, I guess that's me. Very quickly, salary and wages are up some. For those that are new on the committee, that includes commissioners' stipends as well. Professional fees, they had been 10, we reduced them down to 8 last year. I put them back to 10. I found we are starting to spend more money on attorneys. I will tell you that in 2015, in that line, we spent $93,749.
Don't augment that, that was a battle both sides were fighting.
That's right.
Going on, increased automobile mileage a little bit, increased, again, as most departments, we're looking at becoming fully operational with attending meetings and that kind of thing, so meals, lodging are up, dues, went from 12 to 13 of what we're expecting. And then statutes and references, those keep going up, so I added, went up to 2,300 on that. Furniture and fixtures, I got a chair falling apart in my office, and office equipment. I have a printer that has been here for quite a while, and I'm getting a little nervous about it. So, that having been said, that's where we are. And I will tell you that the total budget for this, for the commissioner's line in 2015 was $240,000.
Yeah, totally different
Yes.
apples.
Different ballgame.
Not even apples to oranges.
Questions on the commissioner's budget?
I have a couple minutes.
Go ahead, Mr. Titus.
Thank you. Just a couple of them. First of all, on the salary, what do the commissioners get again per year?
They get $4,000 each plus 500 extra for the chair.
For the chair. Now,
So that's 28.5.
maybe you can refresh my memory. I think the charter allows us to have to approve all increases, but can we actually approve a decrease?
No, the way the amendment to the charter reads, it's a Mexican standoff. You can't reduce it without their say-so, and they can't increase it without your say-so.
Yeah.
So,
So we could make a recommendation. If we pass it, they still couldn't accept it. I mean, they could just deny it if we did recommend it.
you can do whatever, but they don't need to.
Yeah, it's not
Yes.
gonna really do much.
Well, I know.
I mean,
It's a
it
matter
is
of,
Almost $30,000.
That 2015 timeframe, they won the right to be able to set their wages. There was no damages assessed on either side.
Yeah, and my only concern is, of course, obviously, that's a lot of money compared to what most local officials get, and I feel a local official works 10 times harder but that's my opinion. The other question I had too was on office supplies. It looks like we've been budgeting 2,000, and, well, 1,000 was spent in 2020, and looks like we've only expended 577 year-to-date.
I have every
And it could be-
expectation that we're going to spend in the next couple of months quite a lot more of that. So I think we'll be fairly close, at least up in 1,500, 1,600.
Okay, and then the other thing was the statutes of reference. Is that something that can't be shared with anybody else? That's specific to what the commissioners need when they got this line number 5510? Year after year, they're expending a couple of $1,000s a year.
And we are, and we actually have reduced that from other departments, and so those are what ends up in my office each year, so. We were spending more than that, and Treasurer's Office had copies of statutes, and Deeds had copies of statutes, and now I'm pretty much it, so that we consolidated copies of statutes.
DA's office had a line for that, but obviously.
Well, I'd just like to I haven't done this for a couple of years, so I'd really like to make a motion that we reduce the commissioner's salary by 1,000 per, or $7,000 off from line number 3120.
I have a motion. I'm not hearing a second. I'm not surprised before we say anything else.
It's all right.
Let that die and move along.
There we go.
You all set?
I'm all set, thank you.
Wow, you got your fun in, okay.
That goes in the minutes.
That does go in the minutes, yes. Mr. Morgan?
Does that salary and wages include benefits also?
No,
Okay,
that's all in the benefit line.
okay.
Further questions on Commissioner's budget?
I missed if it was Larry, what's new this year for lodging?
That comes to both myself, commissioners, so on, have attended the Maine Commissioners, County Commissioners Association. So that involves several.
Bring it back to pre-COVID, as
Yeah,
you're seeing in
right.
2020,
Mhm.
that's what we're saying. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion if I
Yeah,
can.
let's hear it.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget at 197, 171, dropping the professional fees back down to 8,000.
We've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
All right. Motion by Mrs. Cesare, seconded by Mr. Ward at 197, 171, with the direction to take that out of professional fees. Mr. Post, do you have any comments on that? If we drop your line 40, 15 to 8,000 again?
I knew I should have increased it by 20,000, but we'll try our best to live within budget of whatever you, and as you know, the last several years, whenever Budget Committee has recommended something different than what was approved by commissioners in the first round, I have gone back to commissioners and suggested and recommended that they approve what the Budget Committee has approved, and that has always been a case, and again, we've always had that good relationship, and this $2,000, well, that won't ruin it, so.
Would have been nice. Would have been nice. Thank you. Any further comments or discussion on that? All right, all those in favor? It is unanimous. I have faith in you, Larry, to make that work. All right, and our last budget for tonight is 1021, Human Resources.
Human Resources is relatively stable, except for the fact that I have added $1,000 under training. We're going to spend close to 1,000, and I'm looking at more training next year for not only Sandy does a lot of the human resource stuff, and we also need some training for some of our other staff, so.
Comments, questions, motions, Mr. Titus?
Just wanted a quick question, though. The psychological exam, wasn't that something more or less for the sheriff's department, or?
Yes, but it comes out of this department.
Okay. Just showing that we haven't expended anything in 2021, so I don't know if we haven't got the bills.
Might be different now since
I-
we just hired two folks.
I think we're hiring somebody we're probably going to expend that.
Okay.
That's my guess. And the
is
trouble
the
is,
600 for one hiree?
yeah, that's one hire, the
Okay.
$600, yeah.
For one hiree,
It's $600 for
Mhm.
the psychic exam.
so,
Yes.
so in the whole year, we'll expect to hire, not all employees go through that exam, just sheriff's department?
Just
employees?
sheriffs, yes.
So they don't expect to
And
hire?
if they've come immediately, if they've come from another department where they've already done it, I think we're exempt, we don't have to do it.
Oh, I
But
see.
anybody that hasn't had the psych exam, they have to.
Okay, very good.
Other questions, motions?
I'll move for the 5,100.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Nichols, seconded by Mrs. Cesare. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Do I hear a final, well, any last thoughts from anyone? Do I hear a final motion?
I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
Great, Mr. Morgan. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Cesare. All right, all those in
At least we're
favor?
good for something, huh?
Yeah.
Unanimous. Thank you all. We'll see you next week as well.